Would you say that you are a financial grown-up in the way that you handle money? Whether you answer yes or no to that question, I'm willing to bet that over a lifetime, you've gained some wisdom about money that is worth passing on to your children and grandchildren. I found the most perfect way to do that this holiday season, a great gift idea for your adult kids who are now raising kids of their own and want to set them up for success. Or really for any young person that you know who is still figuring things out when it comes to finances. And that is this book, which I devoured in just a few hours on a recent flight. It's that good. Launching Financial Grownups, Live Your Richest Life by helping your almost adult kids become everyday money smart. The author is my friend and financial industry colleague, Bobbi Rebell. Bobbi is a well-known financial literacy advocate, the host of Money Tips for Financial Grownups podcast, and the founder of grownupgear.com. She was also previously a global business news anchor and personal finance columnist at Reuters, and held various journalist positions at top news outlets, including CNBC, CNN, and PBS. When it comes to being money smart, Bobbi is the resource, and I'm delighted that she joined me recently for this interview about her book. She dropped so many bits of wisdom during our conversation. So without further ado, here is my interview with Bobbi Rebell. Bobbi, hello, hello. I am so delighted to have my friend and finance expert here to educate us on all things adult children and what they should know about money. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I'm so glad we finally got our calendars together.
Yes, I know. And it's been a crazy year. I can't believe we're already heading into the holiday season again. But I had shared with you that I recently read your book on a long flight, and it was so delicious that I literally devoured the content. And Launching Financial Grownups, it's such an interesting concept. A book for adults on how to help their kids become money smart, or any young person that you know in your life that needs that wisdom. Why did you decide to write on this topic?
Well, it became clear to me, Danielle, that parents and any adult that cares about young people in their life, whether they're nieces, nephews, your friends' children, we are the ultimate stakeholders in the next generation's future. We talk a lot about the fact that schools should educate. And by the way, they should. This is not an or, it's an and. Schools also should educate our young people. But the truth is, who are the stakeholders, right? Schools are, in the scope of their lives, a very short period of their lives. Each teacher has them only for a small, it's like a blink of an eye. The ultimate stakeholders really are the parents, the grandparents, the aunts, uncles, and adults in their lives, the godparents, and so on. And so it's really our responsibility and to our benefit that we make sure that they understand how to be financial grownups and how to really take ownership of their lives as adults.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because before we started recording here, we were talking about that I have a whole group of employees at Your Benefits in that, age of early 20s up to say 26, 27. And that we sometimes have them asking about finance education at work even, which leads to that maybe people don't share enough about finance with their kids. And so then you do have people coming into the workforce who don't really have the savvy that they need to manage their life and their money. In the introduction, you stated something I felt was so vital, because we do see many people in their golden years, those are my clients here, who are still supporting their adult kids financially. And you said, if young adults don't launch as financial grownups, we, their parents, will not have the financial freedom we deserve and need as we age and move into our golden years. So tell us a little bit about that concept from your perspective and what you see as a finance expert.
Well, first of all, thank you for mentioning that, because that is something so compelling. And it's something that came up repeatedly in the research that I was doing for the book. And now it's this thing that people whisper to me when I go out and speak about the book. Afterwards, people linger and they sort of confess to me that they have children. And this book is written primarily focused on the adults that have kids between 16 and 26. But people are whispering to me, Danielle, I have a 28-year-old, I have a 30-year-old, I have a 33-year-old. and I'm still paying, whether it's something that seems symbolic, like their phone bill seems innocuous, or maybe they're just sending them checks every month, or maybe it's just a constant sporadic, let me give you a check here and there, or paying for vacations, not family vacations where your grandpa treating everybody. I mean, vacations where you're really subsidizing a lifestyle that they
Yeah.
still can't afford. And so it's sort of this underlying secret that nobody's talking about, but has become very prominent. It's kind of an extension of the helicopter parenting trend. And I refer to it, and I didn't coin the term, so I'm not taking credit for it, but I refer to it a lot as concierge parenting, where especially through technology these days, which we did not have when we were this age, but technology like texting and FaceTime and WhatsApp, whatever it may be, we, the older generation, are often available at all hours to solve problems that they would figure out on their own. And very often the way that we are solving them, sometimes from a distance, is through money. We throw money
Hmm.
at problems. I've done it myself as a parent. And by the way, there's plenty of confessions from my own life in this book, as you can attest to. This is definitely learn from my mistakes, not necessarily from what I'm always doing correctly. I have a lot of great experts in this book. So we're kind of not talking about it. And I found myself not talking about my mistakes. And when I would quietly bring it up to friends, they would confess that they didn't know how to exit their child
Mm.
off the support. And even to this day, I have friends that are just like, not going to do it. I'm still sending that $500 check every month because I want my kids to be comfortable. And, that's a personal choice. And if it doesn't ultimately damage your retirement and you choose to do that, the question I pose to those parents are, if the check didn't come tomorrow, will your kid be okay? And
Hmm.
if the answer is no, you're not doing your job as parents. If the answer
Yeah.
is they'll figure it out, well, then that's your choice. Not necessarily
Hmm.
the right choice, but that's your choice as long as you understand what's going on and what you're taking from them. Because sometimes when we over subsidize kids to a lifestyle it's one thing if it's a transition period, and there's exceptions, of course, we're human. But if you set a child up for a lifestyle that they are not set up to afford on their own, you have told your child you don't believe in them. You've
Hmm.
told them that you are not confident in them, that they can be adults. And that's really taking something away from your child, not giving to your child.
Yeah, and it's so compelling. And you see that giving to your child in so many different ways. They help them with rent. In my own family, I have seen helping with student loans. My parents, I think, did really well in that I graduated and those loans were my responsibility, and they kept me
Mhm.
abreast of everything that was accumulating
Yeah,
during that whole time that they were there. And so when I graduated, my loans were of a size that I could handle. But
right.
I've been astonished in recent years to just learn the size of some student loans that young job candidates are facing, even people that work for me. And in addition to that, the staggering credit card debt. And I wonder, how will they ever get ahead? So do you think that parents should raise children to pursue their passions, even if talent or aptitude isn't there?
I think you know the answer. And this is really hard because, look, we've been trained as parents in this generation. Now, I'm a Gen Xer, but I think many boomers can also relate to this. We've been trained to love our children, encourage them to try new things, follow your passion. I think that's great when it comes to recreation, but it's complicated when it comes to how you're going to earn your living. And I think it's important to separate the two. Very often, you may have a passion. Let's say I love to paint. I did my first painting this summer. I thought it was super fun. I have no talent for it, Danielle, but I'd like to do it. The answer is earn enough money that I can go to the painting place because I live in New York City. I can't do it in my apartment. And I can do that on a Sunday. Okay.
Yes.
If you enjoy singing and you are bad at singing, don't be a professional singer, but do that karaoke night. That's great. It's really important to work backwards from the life that you want to lead. What will your everyday life look like? And walk your young people through that. Think, if I take this low paying job, what is the reality of my life? Is it important for me to live in a major city? Is it important for me to live near my family? Does my family live in a very expensive area? If I want to live there, can I afford it while doing this career? Now, within that, there's a range because many careers, you may be not successful and you won't earn very much, or you may be very successful. I'll give a personal example, and with his permission, because he has agreed to be content. My stepson, who's 23, will come in and say, "I got content today." So, and that was most recently when his coworkers were very impressed that he had set up a Roth IRA when he was a teenager, when he had income, because at 23, most kids don't. At best case, they're doing a 401k. Anyway, long story short, he entered college looking to do finance. He then wanted to switch and do he wanted to go to film and TV, which is something I think most parents are not that thrilled about if they're concerned about their child earning a living. But here's the thing. He got a 4-year degree at a college, and we basically said to him, okay, we expect you to have a full-time job, and you have about 6 months. We didn't put a permanent date, but about 6 months to get it. He did. He is working on a major motion picture. He is earning money. He is not earning enough money that we feel he should spend that money to pay rent, because we do have 2 extra bedrooms in our home. He is less than a year out of school. And what we've agreed on, and we're very open, we see his paychecks, we know exactly what's going on. He's banking the money. So when he moves out, whether it's to a rental or to own, he will have his very strong emergency fund. So we're having conversations about it. And he understands very clearly what jobs, and is learning what certain jobs in the motion picture industry will pay, the difference in benefits. He does have a job with benefits. We discussed with him how his health insurance would work. Big fact, many people don't talk about, dental and eye ends at age 23. So we went through that with him.
Yes.
He gets those benefits from his employer. We did the math with him. Even though we knew our health plan would be better for him, we made him do the math with us. We made a family decision to keep him on our health plan, but he's acutely aware that that's ending in 2 years. So I'm laying out the facts for him. I'm not telling him not to pursue his passion. He seems to have a talent for it. He is working on a major motion picture. He is fully employed. That said, ultimately, he will have to decide in the next few years, because he does want to move out. Does he want to stay in this industry? Will he earn enough money, or will he earn enough money to live comfortably, or enough money that he's willing to, let's say, have 3 roommates in his 20s or whatever that may be, right? Let him make the choice, but he's going to make the choice without us saying, but we will write you a check for X dollars to pay your rent. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
Right? We're saying you can live here for now, less than a year out of school at this point. There's no firm deadline, but it's open books on finances while you're here. He's not out partying. Frankly, the kid works 60 to 80 hours a week, but he's not out partying and blowing the money. He is banking the money. And when he lives with us and we're not charging him rent, it's open books on the money.
Yeah.
That's part of the deal, is we do get a say in his money, because we are de facto subsidizing him. But he likes it. He likes that we care. He's really proud of himself. And so we're giving him that confidence. He had to pay some taxes this year. And you know what I did? I showed him the documents. We opened it together. We went over why he owed it, right? And I made sure he called the IRS and made the payment out of his income. But more important than the fact that he paid it out of his income was that he knew I was there as a backstop for questions, but he called the IRS. He paid the bill through his account. It's really important when they're adults, and every child matures differently, but that I like to say, they press the keys on the keyboard. Sit next to them, but make sure, for example, when we did renter's insurance with him, I looked over his shoulder as he pressed the buttons. That is so important.
Yeah.
Because then they know how to do it next themselves. Otherwise, as we know, they're looking the other way. They're sneaking a look at their phone. They're texting. They're checking their Instagram, whatever it may be. They're not fully engaged. When they're at the computer or on the phone, making the choices directly, they're going to be much more invested. And the next time, they might want you there checking up on them, but they won't need you there.
Yeah.
And giving that confidence, you did it. You took care of your taxes this year. You know what to do. If I'm not there to help you with taxes next year, you got this.
Yeah. And I think that was a major theme in your book, not just about that we're educating, but that actually this process can be so enriching for you as a parent and for them as the child, to have these open discussions, to make decisions together, to make them ahead of time. We've kind of seen society moving away from that a little bit, and it feels like kind of a call back to where we should be. When I graduated from high school and went into college, I didn't know what I wanted to major in, and I loved history. I always have loved history and I love liberal arts. And so I ended up getting a degree in English and journalism, with the journalism piece being the thing about, well, this might be where I could actually earn money and practice something that I really like over here. And I'll never forget, I had a conversation with my Uncle Chip, who came into town, and I was talking to him about, if I should change over to a history major. And he made the point of, okay, but let's think about out there in the real world, what kind of jobs can you get with that degree? How many open professorships are there in the nation at any one given time, as that would be probably one of the main areas where you might be able to practice a degree, and what can you earn in that type of degree, as opposed to what if you do something or find something that you still like that you can earn a decent living at, and then you spend the money that you do have on your own travel and on books that educate you. You can join clubs, and today, now more than ever, whatever passion you have, there's a million ways that you can find online to interact with other people that have that passion. It doesn't necessarily have to become your career. If you're going to spend $60,000 to $80,000 getting a degree, and it's only going to provide you a job that you might tap out at the top is a salary of $50,000 or $55,000 a year, what kind of conversations should parents be having with their kids ahead of time for the kids to make those choices and make them well, so that we're not coming out of school and being like, oh my goodness, I can't pay this giant loan with the kind of money that I can get on the degree that I chose.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important. I like the fact that you put out there that certain careers really do have caps where you're really going to be in a range. And I talk about in the book how our oldest, had really wanted to be a teacher, but it is very limiting. And what's different about child number 2 that we were just talking about is in the film and TV business. First of all, I believe in him. I think he's talented, although I think every parent thinks their child is talented. But there is no limit to what you can earn in the film and TV business. He could, in fact, make many millions of dollars. So even though it's a very hard to break into industry, if your child is talented, and I think hard work and practical skills are more important than talent, I would say, because you have to be very savvy in these sort of fluid careers where in film and TV, very often you're not just going to have a corporate job and rise to the top. You have to kind of wiggle your way through different backdoor ways versus being a history professor, there's a very set course and there's a very set cap. So if your child is going to be in one of these sort of more vague careers and you want to support them doing that, and I say support, not financially support, I'm talking about, be supportive of it, that's fine, but have them understand the work ethic and the initiative. You're really an entrepreneur in many of these careers. And I think that's also something that is very new for this generation is many careers are entrepreneurial where, yes, they have the freedom. They can switch jobs very easily. They do not have benefits as attached to jobs as in previous generations, still more than we really admit. But there is a lot more wiggle room. But that also means that you have to really think of yourself as an entrepreneur and really drive that income because the employers are simply not going to, quote, take care of you the way that happened, let's say, in the boomer generation, less so for Gen X. So you really have to treat them. You have to teach them to advocate for themselves and to understand what money will go with them if they leave the job and what doesn't. So to that point, for example, they want a job hop, you got a 401k, they might say, oh, cool, there's a 8% match. It's amazing. I actually had that my first job for CNBC. Wow. I know. And I did know how good I had it because I had a great HR person, but it didn't vest right away, right? There's different structured vesting plans. It may be 5 years. You might be on a 7-year plan where you're not vested. So help them understand there is a literal dollar cost. If you leave, you keep your money, but you're not going to get the match. So think about that when you time your leaving. Think about how things will play out and understand different jobs and different structures. No one is going to sit down with them and do that. One of the downsides to all the technology that has come into human resources recently is that when young people start jobs, they're often given a link to the benefits. First of all, let's hope they even click on the link, and then they do. It's like a little AI robot, and that's not the same. And they don't feel it's really true. They usually don't click on it, or they do a cursory through it. Maybe their parents tell them to. But unless you sit with them, there are so many amazing benefits that they are probably missing just because they don't know about them, and important benefits with deadlines that they could very easily miss. And it is extremely expensive because as we know, benefits are a huge part of compensation. And so that's something very important to remember that they miss out on when they are part of the gig economy. So it's really important to understand what's out there and for parents to push their children, not only to go through that, but to ask the parents those questions when they don't understand something, because very often they're embarrassed and they don't want to go to the HR people. And that's really not the HR people's job anymore. I said I had a wonderful HR person that was at CNBC. Her name was Suzanne. I forget her last name at this point, but she sat me down and said, you're going to put all the money in this 401k because this is an amazing match and you're going to want to have it. And by the way, that money is still growing to this day. We don't have that these days, generally. I mean, we don't even onboard in person most of the time, right? When young people are getting jobs these days. So you don't have that person. And again, back to our original point, it is the parents that are the stakeholders. And if your kid doesn't sign up for the benefits that they need or that they will benefit from, ultimately, you are the stakeholders. Because if you're a parent and your kid forgot the health insurance and they have no health insurance and they're sick, you're writing that check.
Yeah, of course.
You know you are. Right.
Yeah.
And that could really wreck with your retirement plans. We know if someone gets sick and they don't have health insurance, it could just rip through everything you have. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. And when you have these conversations with your kids up front, they go into this with their eyes wide open and they know what the risks are, and you're minimizing the possibility that later on you would have to subsidize something, especially in a health insurance kind of view. And I also loved the point you made in your book about letting our children enjoy the feeling of accomplishment that they will get by paying for things they want with the money they earn is a gift that we need to let them have. And so if you think about this, like my mom, when I first graduated from college, and I think I was making $9 an hour, plus I had negotiated this bonus. And man, I hit that bonus every month because I needed that money. I was living on next nothing. And in the middle of that next to nothing, she's like, well, we need to go down to the bank and open your IRA. And I was like, with what money, and I just like couldn't believe that she thought I would have that. And she marched me down there to Bank One. That was back then it was called Bank One before Chase bought them out. And we sat down and I think I started with $25 a month that I put into this. And then the feeling of accomplishment that I gained later when I saw all of that compounding interest, that was there, that feeling of accomplishment of understanding my parent gave me this knowledge and then I made a good choice, and then seeing the result of that is a gift that you want to give to your children.
It really is. And I can tell you the pride of our oldest who owns her own New York City apartment. Now that sounds so crazy to people. How did she buy an apartment at 24? Well, first of all, full disclosure, she did graduate debt free. So take that off the table. She did have that privilege. Okay. That said, she worked since she was 16. She worked her way up. She did a lot of teaching swimming and being a lifeguard, and she got the highest degree. So she could get, there's different levels of lifeguarding and understanding safety at the pool and teaching lessons. So she was made sure she was at the highest level with all of her certifications up to date. So she could make the most money doing that. She always had side jobs. She's always been, selling clothing and just kind of hustling. She's even got an account for her dog where she makes money. Well, she was going to be, she's good. She wanted a dog. We told her it was too expensive. She did wait a year, but now she has Wally. It's called Wally the Maltese. If anyone wants to follow Wally on Instagram. Oh, how fun. But Wally is an influencer. But anyway, the point is she wanted to be a teacher, and she went into college wanting to be a teacher. And then she realized, look, she grew up in New York City and she wanted to live at this point. She did want to live in New York City. I had bought an apartment in my 20s. And so she had that as sort of a role model, which is always good to do. If you have that role model, can also be, this is what I did wrong. So if you didn't have certain goals that you accomplished, be honest about that. Vulnerability can really help your children because we see our parents as perfect, a lot of us. But she had that idea. And by the way, my apartment was not very nice, my first apartment. I mean, it was like back of the building, low floor, teeny tiny. And I lived there 7 years. Okay. And I ate mac and cheese to afford it. So this wasn't some glam situation. But she did. She was like, how am I going to do this? She looked at what teachers get paid, which is a tragedy, by the way. That's a bigger societal issue we're not going to solve today. But she's like, the math won't work because even if I work my way up with, you've got to get advanced degrees in New York City to even make the maximum pay and so on. It's never going to be enough. And she made a decision. She switched to the School of Informatics, and she's now a cybersecurity consultant at a major consulting firm.
Awesome.
And she's been promoted twice, and she gets bonuses and she gets a lot of perks. And she really wanted a job with perks. Perks are really fun.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. Everyone talks about the gig economy and they want to be young entrepreneurs. Most really successful entrepreneurs are actually in midlife is when they start the companies. When you're young, there's nothing bad about getting a steady paycheck and getting lots of fun perks and creating a culture where you have mentors, people that can help you move up in your career and become future connections for what you do later in life. She's gotten to go on with her boyfriend. They both got promoted. They both got some kind of bonus so they each got to go to like spas for 3 or 4 days and take each other. And, it's fun. It's fun to have perks. And so everyone go poo-poos these big company jobs, but you know what? She's really enjoying it. And she works really hard. And she did choose to get that, super nerdy degree, but it's working out for her. And she, after having lived at home for 2 years, banking every penny, watching it on an Excel spreadsheet, we did a whole podcast episode. I can give you the link to share with your viewers, but she explains how she did it. And it kind of broke my heart as a parent because when I interviewed her, she told me things that I hadn't always been fully cognizant of during that period when she lived at home and was saving every penny, watching it with that Excel sheet. And she saved, by the way, not just for the down payment, but also the closing costs. And she was working very hard on improving her credit score and doing specific things for that. She told me that there were times when she did not go out with her friends. And that broke my heart. And that's a hard thing. But, we as parents have to let them make those choices. I think that I hope that I wouldn't have, but I think if I had known, I might have been like, oh, here's some cash, just go. Because we're human, right?
Yeah.
We don't want them to miss out on those things. And I think it's important that they don't, but it's also okay if they do, if it's by their choice for a larger goal. And, many of these friends that were out partying are still living with their parents.
Yeah.
Now it's 4 years out of school and that's their choice. But a lot of them say, one of them, she showed me a text. She'll screen grab texts from her friends. And one of them said something like, you're so lucky. There's no luck. She worked for it, but you're so lucky. And I'll never get out of my parents' apartment unless they buy me an apartment. There's no hope. Well,
oh my gosh,
that friend is not in as high paying a job as maybe she could be, but also that friend has been spending. And without a plan, there is a balance. You don't have to go cold turkey the way to a large degree. Our oldest child did. But she also talks about the fact that the pandemic helped because there was less to miss out on, truth be told. But you don't have to necessarily go cold turkey. Maybe you have a longer timeline. She really wanted out. 2 years of banking every penny she made, and she did it. You could do it over 3 or 4 years, but if you don't do it over a certain time period and plan it, it won't happen. Just like with retirement, right? Your runway may be a little longer because you don't want to miss out on certain things, but you need to have the runway or it won't happen. And we as parents need to give our kids a little bit of tough love about that. Even now with a 23-year-old, like I said, it's only, let's say he graduated in, let's say June, July, August. So it's been less than 6 months. Okay. He's already thinking, where am I going to go? And just having the discussion that this is not a forever situation gives them confidence that you believe in them, that they have a plan and they will figure it out. And he doesn't have to know where he's going, but he's banking the money. So he has the resources for when he decides. So he will have choices. So he may have a year's worth of rent backed up if a rental is what's right for him. He may have a down payment if owning is right for him. Whatever it may be, having the financial resources ready is good enough. You don't have to know where you want to go. And by the way, nothing has to be forever. With the oldest child, yes, she owns her apartment, but you know what? If she wants to go to graduate school, she can rent it out. If she wants to move to a different state and decides she's done with New York City, she could sell it, right? These decisions that seem so grown up and permanent and scary to young people aren't.
Yeah. And I think if you think about the feeling that she has walking into her own apartment, I bet she doesn't really regret so much that there were a few nights or times when she didn't get to go out with her friends, that was probably a
No.
sacrifice well made when she gets to be 24 and walking into an apartment that's all her own, and that accomplishment that you have. Now, when you were talking about her, you also mentioned credit, and that's something else that you discuss in the book. Like, setting up good credit is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the best way now in almost 2023 for young adults to do this?
So this is where parents can really be helpful to their children. The best shortcut, honestly, is to put your kids on your credit card as early as possible. You can put very tight spending limits on, but that way they will benefit, especially not just from your credit score, which hopefully is very strong, but from the timeline of your credit. And teaching them and showing them. You don't have to show them your stuff, just show them their stuff, discuss it. It's important to do that. So, we put our kids, in our case, we have American Express Platinum cards. And when it came time, especially for them to be traveling, whether it's college, or the middle child was a champion fencer and he would travel around the country doing fencing as he got older on his own, that was really good because we could have them have the freedom to spend. We could adjust it if we needed to in terms of the spending limit, but they understood how much they could spend. We didn't do one of these like vague, like, oh, use it only for emergencies. We were like, use it, put all of your expenses on it, and then we'll discuss after the fact. Now, keep in mind, these are responsible kids. Every kid has a different personality, different maturity. So this isn't necessarily one size fits all. What we loved about it was the benefit that we could put them on for very little extra money, and they could go into the airport lounges, and anyone that has, especially teenage boys, will know the benefit of the free food. So think strategically about what credit card you're going to put them on, and also what resources and what's age appropriate. Now, my youngest, who's 15 years old, I have him on Greenlight, which is an app that I really love. And that's great because, again, it's about the discussion. So he has his debit card. I think we got it when he was about 13, and it's super simple. He's got it running through Apple Pay, and I don't always keep that much money on there because, again, different kids, different maturity levels. So I keep a pretty tight leash on this one. But, if he's going out, the other day, he goes away to school at this point. They were going off campus, and he said, we're going out to dinner at a restaurant. I don't have that much money on my card, so I could send him money. Right, instantly. And I think that's a really great thing. And because it's a certain amount, I don't have to deal with the pressure. Like if he just pulled out a credit card with all these 15-year-old boys, they're generous with each other, and they'll be like, oh, I got this, or another kid. I mean, that's happened.
So easy to say in the moment. Yeah.
They don't really understand that they've just volunteered their parents' money to pay for everybody there. You don't want them to do that. So that's why I like Greenlight, because you're giving them, you can really control it. You can also control what kinds of expenses they can pay for. You can say it can't go for this kind of expense, but it can go for this kind of expense. And I like having that control. And I like having the discussion, because a lot of parents have come to me and said, oh, I wish we still used cash more on a regular basis. It's so hard to teach kids about money when it's all electronic and it doesn't feel like money. Well, first of all, let's just live in the real world. It is what it is, instead of being all nostalgic. Okay. But more importantly, I prefer to look at the really benefits of the digital economy, because number one, especially when we first started this, and he was, I want to say like 6th grade, and, I could call him out and be like, what's up with Krispy Kreme, honey? I thought you guys were going to get salads, right? And he's like, how do you know that? And I'm like, honey, come on, right? You know exactly what's going on with the money, right? And then also, but also you have this control where you can set up allowances where he literally has a checklist of things that he has to do if he wants to get his weekly allowance. I've talked extensively about how that has backfired on me, because I set up allowance in the wrong way, where I said, you have to do things like make your bed or you won't get allowance. And he's not a materialistic kid. So then he just was like, okay, cool. I don't have to make my bed anymore. So be careful with allowance, parents, especially with younger kids, because they might not make the choice you think they're going to make. Sometimes kids don't really care about money. And I think that's sometimes the biggest thing, is when kids, going back to your question about, if they want to pursue their passion, they will very often say, but I'm not materialistic. I don't necessarily need all the things that you need. And you have to kind of take a step back and let them figure it out. And the best way to do that is to take away rather than subsidize. And they might realize that their life is more expensive than they understood. And giving that information to them verbally is not the same as giving it to them in the real world. If you say, fine, then, here, let me go over what your life costs. When will you be taking over?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There are many kids that live here in New York City that will live rent free in their parents, pied a terres, and they don't really understand what their life is costing while they
Yeah.
work in nonprofit jobs or whatever, which is wonderful. But, ultimately it won't support them.
Yeah.
So,
And then they won't have the tools later that they need, because that
right.
situation obviously can't last forever. You
Well, it's
mentioned
not,
Greenlight.
and I just want to say, it's not about buying, the Gucci bag, although I don't think this generation's as obsessed with material things. It's about, when your kid needs braces, do
Mm-hmm.
you have, $10,000 for braces? That's what hits people.
Of
And I think
course.
that's what I think a lot of young people don't always understand. And it's not about buying stuff. It's about paying for things that matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a child that really wants lessons for something, or you want to go on a family trip, a family trip, it has to be at a certain age, certain activities. If you want to go to Sesame Place, you can't say, let's save up for that for 10 years, because the window is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So when you live your adult life, there are certain things that you don't want to be delayed gratification. We talk so much about that. Saving up for something, sometimes there really is a window, and that's what people should understand. Okay, go on. I'm sorry about that,
That's
but I'm
okay.
very passionate about it.
But there's ways to be generous with your kids
Yes.
at the same time as teaching them good financial lessons as well. And I think you make such excellent points surrounding that in the book. And one of the questions I had, because just thinking about my community and the boomers, we have a Facebook group where they can come and ask their Medicare questions. And you have that group of people in there that are really technologically savvy, but there are also people that I'm not online. I don't participate in communities like that. You know, what's the best way for parents today to dip their toe into technology, like the Greenlight app that you mentioned, so that they have enough of an understanding to lead their kids in the way that it works in the world today? And then also, can you talk about any communities that exist online where people, adult kids themselves who want to learn and are interested in this topic more, can sort of plug in and learn from peers?
Such a great question. Well, first of all, if you are wary of technology, unfortunately, this is kind of a tough love to you, because just like we can say we wish we did cash more, and they still do take cash at many places, but at the end of the day, you're going to find once you get over the learning curve, it is going to be easier to just pay with your phone,
Yeah,
metaphorically.
it
So I would
is.
encourage you, whatever medium you are most comfortable with, and you can go in, you don't have to post anything. You can just use it to look at pictures of your grandchildren or your children and just enjoy whatever it is, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest. There is a platform that's going to work for you in terms of social media. I also think podcasts can be an amazing
I
resource. I have a
agree.
podcast called Money Tips for Financial Grownups, and there's many other podcasts depending on your interest. You just search on whatever platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That said, I really recommend, and I have no skin in the game, I do recommend paying for them, because the ads are annoying. Your time
Yeah.
is valuable. It's a very small amount. And if you pay for them, one thing that I do recommend, and this is something I talk about, it's a family ecosystem. One way to get close to your family is share those. If it's a family membership and you are paying for up to 5 logins, by all means, share with your children and do not charge them. So I have a Spotify membership, again, no ties to the company, but I tell my kids, it's yours for free if you want it.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Kid number one prefers Apple Podcasts, and for
Mm.
various reasons, it's running through my login, because that's how she gets the Spotify. And I make her pay me. I set up an auto pay because I said, nobody else wants that. You're the only one paying for it. And she actually gets hit on an auto pay every month for that app, because I'm like, I'm giving you this for free.
Yep.
And it may seem petty, but you are choosing this. And
You're
even though
choosing
it's only
something
like,
else. Yep.
you're choosing something else, you're not on the family plan, you want your own thing. And for reasons that are TMI, it just makes more sense for it to run through my bill. She gets hit with the bill. It's just an auto pay. I'm not asking her for it. And that's also important. Don't
Mm-hmm.
increase your, educate yourself so you're not paying more than you need to. And you're also not double paying. And this is something I talk about in the book, to the family ecosystem. So phone bills. This was not even a thing when we were growing up because you just had the landline, right? Well,
Yeah.
now you've got this cell phone chaos and there's all these different plans. They do everything they can to confuse you. But the truth is, in most cases, some form of family plan is going to make the most sense if you divide it on a per person basis.
Yes.
I don't believe in creating bigger bills. If it makes sense to have your adult children on your bill, let's say instead of $125 for one of them, it costs them $25 to be on your plan, do that.
Of
But
course.
unless there's a true hardship, hit them up for that $25.
Yep.
Have it auto pay. Don't put yourself in the position where you're asking. It's an auto pay, have it set up, and don't even discuss it. Same thing with the health insurance. Unless you want to subsidize it purposefully, but if they're on your health insurance and it costs you $50 extra to have them on, you can hit them up for that $50 because that's a lot less than the $500 they would be paying on their own. And don't feel guilty. It is important that they understand the cost of their life. Okay. If they have an actual hardship, make an adjustment, of course, but have them come to you and discuss what that hardship is. And the hardship shouldn't be, I need to party more with my friends. Okay.
Yeah.
So create that dialogue, force the dialogue when you do have those situations, but by all means, don't create extra expenses. And in terms of communities, by the way, I would recommend Grown and Flown.
Okay.
The women behind the book are interviewed in my book, Launching Financial Grownups. They also have their own book, Grown and Flown, and that's a wonderful community to be part of as well.
Awesome. Thank you for those. I appreciate that. And this has been so enlightening. Thank you so much for coming to share. If you had to, in closure here, if you had to give adult parents your top 3 things that they could implement today to help their kids or their children's children become financial grownups, what tips would you give?
I think the most important thing is to let them know that you have their back, that you are there for them. That doesn't mean you're going to pay for everything for them, but you are there for them. You are not cutting them off. You love them.
Yeah.
If they come to you with something reasonable that you can be helpful with to help launch them. For example, if they say, I need this apartment and I'm going to get a roommate, but I'm this much short, but I won't be because I'm going to get a raise for this amount of time. Can you help me? And you can, it's okay.
Of course.
Give them the help and don't make them feel bad about it, but help them understand the timeline and that you believe in them. Don't say, I'm cutting you off. Say, I know you got this. I know you got this. Let's
so
talk about it. How you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Give them the confidence, believe in them because you do, right? And when it comes to number 2 is, you talk so much about helping them, what do you do when they have this passion? You need to take a step back. Let them pursue the passion, but talk them through it. Okay.
Yeah.
Let them do it. If they want a low paying job, let them do it, but let them do it fully. Let them fully experience what that means for their life and what their choices evolve. So in other words, let it play out. If they want to work in a job that is going to be perpetually low paying, you need to lift them up, tell them, I have confidence, you'll figure it out. Happy to brainstorm with you anytime. They can have 5 roommates, right? They can live in a different city. That's going to break your heart if they move. They can live, but I have a friend that moved to Maine because she didn't want the stress of the financial overhead. And her husband wanted to do certain artistic things and she wanted to be home with the kids and they just were going to have a lower overhead lifestyle. And that's totally cool, right? That's fine. As long as you go in with your eyes open. So help them understand how things will play out and let them know, by the way, that it's also okay to change their mind and not by saying, oh, well, you did this for 2 years, do this for 2 years and then you'll get a real job, right? Because that's just going to make them think that you don't believe in them. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Just let it play out, but let them know, just because you decided that you wanted to do X when you were 22, you can feel very differently at 25. My mother became a lawyer in her 40s, right?
That happens a lot today. Yeah.
It happens a lot today. At the time, it was completely radical, right? So let them know it's okay to have more than one career in their life, And then the final thing I would say is, put family first. At the end of the day, know that you're going to be there for your family. Know that you're going to be there for your kids. Focus on a day-to-day basis on their wants, not their needs.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, and that's flipping the switch, because when we tell people how to manage their money, we always say focus first on your needs and then the wants come in. With parents, I think it's important to say to your kids, I believe in you. You can pay for your life. You can pay your rent. You can pay your grocery bill. You got that cable bill. You got that phone bill, whatever it is. But I'm taking you out to dinner.
Yeah.
and it's on me. Or we're gonna do a once a year big family vacation. Everyone's coming along, and I'm paying for everything, and you don't worry about a thing, right?
Yeah.
Do the fun stuff with them, and don't be afraid to let them know that you believe in them, not in a negative, I'm cutting you off, you're on your own. Just be like, I believe you can cover this. If you can't, come to me. We're going to talk it out. We're there for you, but you got this. And instilling that confidence in them is really priceless and will carry them so far. It really will.
So good. I love it. I love keeping those lines of communication open and keeping family first. And then that gives them the confidence to ask you the questions that otherwise they may not, which could lead them in the wrong direction. So, so much wisdom here today. I'm impressed, always impressed with everything, all the content that you put out, Bobbi. The book is Launching Financial Grownups. I highly recommend it. It makes a great Christmas gift for anyone in your life that you know that these kind of lessons would be helpful for. And Bobbi, tell my audience where they can learn more about you and follow you.
Sure. So, and it's a great gift, by the way, for clients. If they want to be in touch with us, just hello@financialgrownup.com. I can get you set up so that the books can go individually to clients. So you don't even have to get involved with like receiving them and going out. So we have a system for that. So a great gift for clients as well. And then, please go to my website. It's just my name, bobbirebell.com, BOBBIREBELL.com. Sign up for my newsletter. We only send it out every other week. So no spammy stuff, but we send out articles and clips and links and things that can give you more financial grown-up related advice and support. And of course, my podcast is Money Tips for Financial Grownups, which you've been on, and we should have you on again. And all good things. And thank you. And happy holidays, by the way.
Of course. And happy holidays to you. I always love connecting with you. You're one of my favorite people in the finance industry. So I appreciate you coming on and spending an hour of your time today, just educating our audience on something that is so vital and important. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.